We turn our attention to our first session today, which is about global research infrastructures, obviously. It will be led by Inmaculada Figueroa. If you don't know Inmaculada, she's the Deputy Director General for International Consortia, Organisations and Research Infrastructures at the Ministry for Science, Innovation and Universities in Spain. She represents Spain at the European Strategy Forum on Research Infrastructures and the CERN and ESO Councils. Will you please put your day 3 hands together and welcome to the stage, Inmaculada Figueroa.
Well, hello, good morning everyone. I'm very happy to be here today in this session, on this last day of the conference, in which we are going to have the opportunity to showcase successful global collaboration on research infrastructures. I have devoted my professional career to research infrastructures. I am working with many of the big ones, serving in the governing board of this organization. I am also really engaged in the research infrastructures body that is making the policies on this field in Europe, but also in many other things that are around the research infrastructure, like all these bodies that we have in Europe, in which we are working with the digital aspect of the research infrastructures. Today we are going to have the opportunity to see how a good an expert panel that is composed by 4 esteemed colleagues that are coming from the different parts of the globe are going to show us how to build these global networks and research infrastructures, and also to pass through the challenges that to put in place and to run these collaborations implies. So with no further delay, I will start to call my colleagues to the stage, and I will start with Satoshi Matsuoka. Thank you. Satoshi is former director of the Riken Center for Computational Science in Japan. He has led the development of the Fugaku supercomputer. That was the world's fastest supercomputing across all major rankings during 20 and 21. He currently continues leading pioneering research in high-performance computing, including the development of the next generations of the Fugaku computer, next supercomputing. So this is for you, okay. Please.
Well, thank you very much for the kind introduction. I'm Satoshi, and firstly, I'd like to say thank the organizers for this wonderful conference. It's my first time here in Brisbane, although I've been to Australia many times. Wonderful city, wonderful ambience, and of course, this conference being very significant in terms of expanding our collaborations internationally, globally. And of course, computing is always at the bottom, where we provide cycles for various disciplines. Okay, and do I give my speech here, or okay, all right. So that's me. That's our machine. Okay. Here's what I'm going to say in 5 to 7 minutes. So firstly, what's the status quo? What's the breakthrough science that's achieved by global collaboration amongst these machines? And what are the new direction involving like AI for science and quantum, and also collaboration in designing and building machines for the future, okay? So firstly, in Japan, this is our computing infrastructure that spans across multiple centers. There are many supercomputers in Japan who have been at this, in fact, for over 50 years, nearly 60 years now. And in fact, I think Japan was the earliest country to have this kind of a network of computers. And of course, in the old days, the network was sending punch cards by mail. I mean, I'm serious, that's what they did back in the 1960s, 70s. But of course, we have a fast internet. These are all tier 2 machines at various institutions, universities, research centers. And we have the tier 1 machine, which is our machine, which is kind of at the pinnacle of our infrastructure. It's not just compute, we also have a data infrastructure that spans across Japan. It's called HPCI storage. The previous, the entire infrastructure called HPCI, High Performance Computing Infrastructure, which is not a very innovative name, but yeah, but very, very easy to remember. But also HPCI embodies this shared storage. This is separate from our supercomputing storage, but allows exchange of data between the machines and also between our instruments. So this is used as sort of intermediary buffer to move the data, to make it easy for users to move the data. And right now we're about a few hundred petabytes, but it'll be subject to the next upgrade next year, which will increase the capacity in the coming years. And this has provided to be really, really important to have this shared data infrastructure. Actually really helps our scientists to work across machines, walk across machines and instruments. Okay, so here's our machine. This is our Tsugaku, which is current flagship machine we developed with Fujitsu. And it's running 24/7. It's like at 95% capacity, so it's a very busy machine. It has about 160,000 nodes, so it's like hyperscaler size machine. The entire area for the floor space is about 3,000 square meters, which is like half of a soccer field or the football field. It uses about 16-20 megawatts. It has 160 petabytes. Yeah, you can go through all the specs if you're a supercomputer geek. But it's been running. It's been a workforce with respect to providing a scientific instrument, computing instrument, to the scientists, not just domestically, but also internationally. So as was introduced, we spearheaded at the top of the rankings for a couple of years. We're still number one in some of the rankings, and with all the breakthrough science, like in the COVID days, with a lot of things, with a lot of stuff, including aerosols. We also help the climate. We also have lots of users from outside Japan because the machine is open to all the scientists globally. And this has really provided the avenue for international collaboration. In fact, if you look across the world, there are many machines now that have this exascale, so-called exascale, or approaching somewhat close to that. So there are 4 machines in Europe, 5 machines in the United States, and there's one Japan. And the next edition will have another one from Japan. And of course, there are smaller machines from other parts of the world, including from those from like Australia, Singapore, and so forth, and Asia. And of course, there are many other machines globally. But now the centers are gathering up to really collaborate to provide more common infrastructure, common working discipline to work, because science is global. And we have users across the globe who are collaborating, so the infrastructure should all collaborate. So ADAC is one such collaboration, which I was one of the founders. And this has grown into an organization that spans across multiple these top centers globally. Also, there are projects like EU, Japan, Hanami. By the way, which first symposium happened at Barcelona in January, where the governments are now starting to fund, the EuroHPC and Japanese HPC are starting to co-fund these types of application level collaboration using these high-end facilities. One recent achievement was this international team involving CEA, Berkeley, and also RICA and so forth, using multiple machines, as you see here on the left-hand side of these exascale machines, to achieve the top award in high-performance computing, the ACM Gordon Bell Prize. This was simulating the laser, basically. I won't go into details, but really difficult simulation involving shooting laser at some materials, and also be able to simulate the exact behavior of the injected particles. And this has considerable application both in material science and medicine, but very, very difficult to simulate. But this combined team was able to simulate across these multiple machines and thus win the award. So quite a bit of achievement. Now we're in the days and age of computing, computing, but also AI and quantum. And there are multiple collaboration that's already happening there. So between the United States and Japan, there's an agreement between DOE and MEXT, our agency, and also individual labs like RICAM versus Argonne to work on AI for science. And also there's an International Consortium, Trillion Parameter Consortium, that was founded by Argonne, and we were also one of the founding members. And this international collaboration people are really trying to help advance AI for science, again, using these major facilities. So if you're interested, please look up TPC, Trillion Parameter Consortium, as spearheading the AI for Science initiative. Finally, we are onwards to creating our next machine. Fugaku, it's there, it's done that. We're ready for our next generation. So we're prepping our projects. The new project will start next year to design and build the next generation machine, which will likely come online in 2029, which will become sort of expected to be like a Zeta scale, the next step, at least in terms of AI, and also significant speed up in traditional HPC apps. But even here, we are collaborating internationally, not just domestically with all the teams, but involving the vendors, like the usual suspects you see there on the left. So it's not just the Japanese vendors. We have the various vendors from the United States. And then also we're collaborating with DOE, and we'll also have various talks with EuroHPC. So the infrastructure itself, the design and the building thereof, is really starting to be that of a global scale. So we hope to be able to continue this trend to provide this platform infrastructure for all the scientific disciplines to advance using computing. Okay, with that, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Matsuoka. The next in the stage is Professor Rory Fitzgerald. Rory is director of the European Social Survey. Is one of the European Research Infrastructure Consortium established in Europe. It is hosted at City St. George's University of London. And the ESS is the leading comparative survey that tracks changing attitudes and values across European countries. Currently, it has 28 member countries and is exploring the expansion of this web panel to include countries beyond Europe. Dear Professor Fitzgerald, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction, and good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a brilliant ICRI. Been to a few before. I think this is definitely one of my favourites, so I'm really enjoying it. I'm going to be talking a little bit today about social science research infrastructure. A reminder, social sciences need research infrastructure too. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about 4 major European ESFRI social science infrastructures, a little bit about some of the global links they already have. And then I'm going to focus on the European Social Survey, ERIC, which is already international with 28 European member countries, but which is now moving and starting its global journey. So I'll be talking a little bit about that, and particularly some of our plans to start global data collection in the near future. So Europe is lucky, blessed to have some social science and social survey research infrastructures. There are 4 in particular, 3 which have a longitudinal dimension, and together they cover most of the life course of humans. We have GUIDE, Growing Up in a Digital Europe, which is in its planning stage, which will take measurements amongst children and young people. Gender and Generations Programme, which covers young adults up to middle age. And then the Survey of Health, Ageing and Retirement in Europe, which covers older adults right through to death. And they are longitudinal surveys covering the life course. And in addition to that, we have the European Social Survey, my own infrastructure, which covers all adults and is a general social survey. And Gender and Generations Programme already has significant global connections, carrying out data collection in Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, Uruguay and Buenos Aires. And Survey of Health, Aging, Retirement in Europe is part of a family of other longitudinal surveys of aging. There are 12 sister surveys from different parts of the world. So there's already significant global collaboration amongst the social surveys. My own infrastructure, European Social Survey, academically led project focusing on the attitudes, behaviour and social conditions of Europeans and how that's changed over time. We have 28 members of our ERIC, 28 national governments who've made a long-term commitment to our infrastructure, the highest number of any ERIC in Europe. It's a cross-national general social survey, so we cover many of the crucial topics facing our society, including climate change, trust, political participation, health inequalities, well-being, democracy, gender, justice and fairness, immigration, and many others, all alongside a rich sociological set of background variables. And we have over 20 years of data already collected, around 500,000 interviews, and all of our data is freely available. There's no privileged access, and it can be downloaded anywhere in the world. And in fact, our 7th highest number of data users actually come from the United States. It's used in many places. We even have 4 data users in the Vatican City. So there really is coverage all across the world, Africa, South America, and so forth. So in that sense, our infrastructure, like those of our sister projects, is very much global already. Very much in the social sciences, often they are bottom-up initiatives in the first instance, and that's also how we're working in terms of our global development going forward. And in terms of our user base, we have over 230,000 registered users since we made our data available, again, all across the world, and many publications arising from that data. So in terms of our European coverage, as I mentioned before, there are 28 national members, but other countries that have taken part over time. The participation has varied a bit, but once we became an ERIC in 2013, that participation has stabilised, and that ERIC framework has really been an essential part of really helping our social science infrastructure to mature. And we cover almost all EU countries, plus UK, Norway, Switzerland, Serbia, Montenegro, and most recently, Ukraine. So thanks to some funding from the European Commission towards the sustainability of our infrastructure, we've started to develop links beyond Europe, because of course many global challenges like climate change, health, democracy and others require a comparative approach. And this has started by signing memorandums of understanding, which has either seen questions from the European Social Survey fielded in countries outside of Europe, like in South Africa and Australia, or it's around methodological collaboration. And in particular, we're working with colleagues in the United States, where both survey programs are moving away from reliance on face-to-face in-home interviewing to self-completion methods. In addition to these memorandums of understandings, we're now looking to move to the next stage of global collaboration. ESS data collection has taken place every 2 years so far, but in addition to our main data collection, we've been operating a probability-based web panel where we recruit respondents to our main survey to do additional online data collection with us. And we're now looking to scope the possibility of adding countries outside of Europe to that online first data collection. And thanks to some funding from ICRI, Economic and Social Research Council, we're running a scoping study at the moment with colleagues in Australia, South Korea, and the US to look at that possibility. And the scoping study is going into all the details, not only the scientific process of designing a questionnaire amongst a much bigger range of countries, but also the funding, governance, data protection, and ethical considerations which we'll face. This web-first panel really offers the possibility in our area of cross-national data collection to speed things up. At the moment, cross-national data collection is quite slow, and this really would lead to a step change, bringing really harmonised data collection at a much greater speed on a global scale. So this blueprint will be published based on these 3 countries in late 2025, and we really are open to other countries coming on board. So this is also a call to those of you in the room who are social scientists yourself or have social science colleagues. Please get in touch with us because we are looking to expand our coverage. I'll leave this last slide here. These are just some of the reflections we've had about developing global collaborations, but a lot of it comes down to that bottom-up way of working, identifying local champions and colleagues and working in a very collaborative format. I'll leave that there. Thank you.
Thank you, Rory. So we go to our third speaker. Our third speaker is Sylvain Charbonnet. He is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Canadian Foundation for Innovation since October 2024. He's a former researcher, entrepreneur, and leader in research administration. And before joining the Canadian Foundation for Innovation, he held the role of Vice President for Research and Innovation at the University of Ottawa. And prior to this, he held the role of Executive Director at the National Research Council of Canada. He's going to bring to the panel another view from the side of the funding agencies. And please, Sylvain, the stage is for you.
Thank you, Inma, for your kind introduction. Good morning, everyone. This is my first ICRI meeting, but my love for infrastructure is unparalleled. It dates from 30 years ago when I was at the National Research Council and I was commissioned by the president of NRC to put together the first and only pure-play 3-5 compound semiconductor foundry in North America. And so my love to infrastructure is long dating. I'm accompanied here by 3 of my colleagues from CFI. Although this is my first meeting, it is not their first meeting. In fact, they've been at every single ICRI. In fact, Ottawa, you will recall, in 2021, hosted virtually the ICRI meeting. So that means that we should be on the list for a future one sooner rather than later. And they have an active role in this conference, not only to listen to all of you with sharing your expertise, but as we are a granting agency, we are always in the lookout for exceptional reviewers, international reviewers, and that's all of you. So they're spotting you and they're coming to talk to you. So thank you very much in advance for your contribution on this. This is great. So the CFI was created in 1997 and as an independent corporation created by the Government of Canada, and to equip colleges, university, research hospitals, and non-for-profit organizations. And if you look at the objectives that we have, this is a cut and paste from the agreement that we have with the federal government, and you will see that international collaboration is front and center in everything that we do. I mean, Canada has only 0.5% of the population in the world and generates only 0.5% in population and generate only 4% of the world's knowledge. And therefore, 96% of what happens is outside of our country. So it is important for us to connect with the ecosystem internationally. We have a very peculiar funding model at the CFI, engaging model, I should say. So we only provide the first 40% of the funds. The other 60% comes, we have 10 provinces in Canada, comes from either the provinces, institution, or the private sector. So as you can see, it's a collaborations that goes on for these things. So as I said, CFI is the only organization in Canada which fund large research infrastructures and also associated operation and maintenance for maintaining these infrastructures. Our flagship program is called the Innovation Fund. It runs every 2.5 years or so and distributes at the 40% about $450 million, which as you leverage it will be of the order of 1.2 billion. So it's a significant amount of funding that goes into the country. And it supports a broad range of research programs in natural sciences, in social sciences and humanities, of course, engineering, health, etc., in the targeted areas that I mentioned earlier. Of the most interest for this audience, the CFI runs what we call the Major Science Initiative Fund, the MSI, which provides support for the ongoing operating and maintenance need of research facilities of national importance for our country. And presently, Canada has 19 of those MSI, some of which might be well known for the community here. Okay, so we have a Canadian light source, we call it the Canadian light source, it's our synchrotron. Needless to say, all of these MSIs reach out internationally. So many of you are probably collaborating with the researchers over at the CLS. We do have a neutrino observatory. It's called SNO Lab. Okay, SNO. The S stands for Sudbury. Okay, so it's in northern Ontario, and it's 2 kilometers underground in a nickel mine, and it's been active for quite some time, I should say. We also have Icebreaker. We have colleagues here from British Columbia on the Ocean Network Canada. We also have the Vaccine and Infectious Disease Organization. Those would be the large MSR, major research facilities that we have. And we also have smaller MSIs, like, for example, the Advanced Laser Light Source, which need only a couple $1 million a year to operate. So you go from the very large to the much smaller. That could be of interest for this community. Earlier this year, the CFI received a mandate from our Ministry of Innovation, Science and Economic Development, okay, from the Canadian government to prepare a major research facility implementation plan for our country. And they will be in different phases. The first phase is to look at the largest investment. Okay, I've mentioned 3 here, which are fairly significant. And this new framework will introduce 2 key approaches for these major research facilities. Okay, a life cycle approach, and I've heard this during the conference today, where the investment to be considered will look at the full life cycle of the facilities, from conception to construction, operation, recapitalization, and yes, the decommissioning of the facilities. And the second approach will be the portfolio approach, okay, ensuring that the funding decision to be made by the federal government reflects a strategic view of competing needs and opportunities. So this framework seeks to align funding strategies with the realities of large-scale infrastructure, and it aims to make the federal investment in the MRF more strategic, coherent, and sustainable for the country. So, as I said, I'm repeating myself. Needless to say, the CFI encourages institutions to partner internationally. One thing of interest, of course, for this community is that our equipment, our infrastructure can be in a foreign country as long as the control of this equipment is under the jurisdiction of a Canadian CFI-eligible Canadian institutions. And most of these projects would be going under our flagship program, which is called the Innovation Fund or the MSI Fund. And they are around the world, from Europe to Australia. And just to conclude, ensuring success in these international research infrastructure collaboration can be summarized in my 3 bullets here to be being engaged. I think what's important is that the active participation in the collaboration process is essential. Researcher, institution, and stakeholder needs to foster open communication, share knowledge, and maintain a consistent presence in discussion. Being selective, collaboration should be strategically chosen to align with shared goals and values. Selecting the right partners and project ensures that resources are allocated efficiently and that a collective effort are more likely to yield meaningful results. And finally, be patient. International research collaboration takes time. I'm told that it took 2 years to negotiate Canada entry into the EU Horizon Europe framework. So that's when you bring the Department of Justice in Canada into a negotiating table, this is what we're talking about. But of course, you can go much lower strategies than that with the MOUs, and that could be much faster, but I think being patient is always very important. And I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvain. So now I am delighted to share this stage with Dr. Kate Thibault. She is the science lead for the United States National Science Foundation National Ecological Observatory Network that is operated by Battelle. And in this role, she managed the science staff responsible for data product design, data quality, and user support. Kate, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Inma, and thank you, everyone, for being here today. And unfortunately, my beautiful picture did not come. So with this slide, we do work in many beautiful places at the National Ecological Observatory Network. So before I delve into a short introduction of NEON and highlighting some of our success stories of global collaboration, I just want to tell you a little bit about Battelle, who operates NEON on behalf of the National Science Foundation. It's a large U.S. not-for-profit science and technology organization. And the physicists in the room in particular may be familiar with Battelle, as it is responsible for managing multiple national laboratories for the U.S. Department of Energy. But now to NEON. Okay, so this is a large facility of the National Science Foundation. It's the first of its kind, funded through the Directorate of Biological Sciences. And it's a distributed observatory, as you see here in this map. We stretch across the 20 ecoclimatic domains of the US, from the North Slope of Alaska to the Pacific in Hawaii, and to Puerto Rico in the Caribbean. And it includes 81 terrestrial and aquatic field sites, at which over 180 different environmental and ecological parameters are measured using highly standardized methods and co-located to enable the science community to understand and forecast the impacts of environmental and climate change on US ecosystems. And these data are collected using a combination of airborne remote sensing, automated instruments, and observational sampling. So lots of boots on the ground. So NEON's primary products are, of course, these data, which we strive to make as fair as possible. They are freely available and accessible via our web portals and APIs. But in addition to the data, NEON also provides an unprecedented diversity of environmental and biological samples and specimens at its biorepository at the Arizona State University. And these are available to everyone to make further research discoveries. Through all of these activities, NEON has also made significant contributions to the global information and data management standard development. We are constantly striving for interoperability with other data sets, and we provide training for the ecological workforce, hundreds of folks on the ground learning the details of ecological fieldwork, and of course, much scientific user support. Finally, our Research Support Services program provides access to the NEON infrastructure, as well as our expertise to support principal investigator-driven research and to serve as a testbed for new methods and technologies. So here you see that, like the European Social Science Survey that Rory described, our freely available data do, in fact, have a global reach. So we have documented over 700,000 active users to our portals over the past 2 years, and most of those users come from outside of the United States. And all of these data come from our Google Analytics. So now to get to some success stories. One example is our partnership with the US Department of Energy's AmeriFlux program. So we provide neon, carbon flux, and other data to Ameriflux to serve through their portal, which then makes it also available through the global FluxNet community. And so this enables discoverability, accessibility, and interoperability of neon data with this global flux data landscape, and it has significantly increased the impact and use of neon data. The other benefit of this collaboration is that also included in this is the processing of neon data through the globally developed OneFlux pipeline. So this is a community agreed upon processing pipeline that provides gap-filled version of neon products. So it makes the data more usable, more science-ready. Similarly, there are over 1 million neon species occurrence records that are available via the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, or GBIF. And thanks to GBIF's useful algorithms for tracking the use of its data, we know that there are over 500 citations of data sets that include neon records, so clearly demonstrating impact through their metrics. Another example of a productive global collaboration can be found in the recent successful efforts of the scientists from the Korean National Institute of Ecology to secure funds to build new environmental research infrastructure in Korea. And construction on this infrastructure is expected to begin in early 2025. Staff from both NEON as well as Australia's Terrestrial Ecosystem Research Network, or TERN, some of whom are in the room, have been working with Korean scientists to share design information and lessons learned as part of this multi-year effort. So we're very excited to see this come to fruition. NEON and TERN have also been working as part of a broader global collaboration. This shouldn't be the first time you've heard about the Global Ecosystem Research Infrastructure, or GERI, effort this conference. But this is an effort to bring the global environmental research infrastructures together to address global problems. And so the current efforts are focused on data harmonization, the surprisingly challenging effort that is to address ecological drought. And just a plug for the side event this afternoon if you're interested in learning more about that endeavor. So thank you.
So thank you, Kate, for your contribution. Now we have some time for some questions, and I would like to start asking you, in the context of your initiatives, how has global collaboration contributed to advancing your core scientific objectives? And what specific benefits have you seen in terms of innovation, resource sharing, and overcoming global challenges? And I would like to start by Kate.
All right, is this on? Yes. So I've touched on a few of them. I think another one to bring up is actually there are multiple efforts around the globe that leverage NEON data to ground truth satellite data. So we have great partners who are working as part of with the European Space Agency's Sentinel-2 satellite and leveraging our on-the-ground leaf area index data. And as part of that, in terms of helping to make more biologically meaningful interpretations of satellite data using NEON data, they've also generated a lot of useful products, again, making more science-ready data for our users. And there are a number of these kinds of examples of leveraging the in situ data that NEON provides to further our understanding and interpretation of satellite data, which of course is increasingly important given the increasing capacity and number of satellites that we see coming down the pike to address truly global questions. Another fun example, I think, of innovation is the work that we have done with a company based in Quebec, Canada, who has designed a way to collect leaves using a drone from the very top of the tallest canopies. So we need to do this to collect the on-the-ground chemical information about the leaves to then tie to the satellite information. And so that's another fun example of the things that global collaboration have done to increase both the quality of our data as well as the efficiency of collection.
Thank you, Kate. Rory, do you want to add something to?
Yeah, there's a famous quote that comparative sociology is sociology itself, and I think we really see that with the global comparisons that we can make with our data. So taking the different infrastructures I mentioned at the beginning, Gender and Generations program, we've really been able to look at differences in fertility. We can look at that in Europe, but now with these other global possibilities, they're able to look at the impact on fertility of other social systems outside of Europe. And also with SHARE and their work on aging societies, they're able to look again at very different contexts, different pension systems, different healthcare systems and its impact on aging. And looking ahead with European Social Survey, particularly around work on climate change, but also work on democracy. Again, it's these wider contexts that you can really bring in from these global collaborations, which I think will strengthen our data.
Thank you. Another question. Given the complex nature of global collaborations between research infrastructures, what strategies and frameworks have been most effective in overcoming policy, governance, and coordination challenges across the diverse stakeholders? And how do these efforts ensure alignment of your goals and resources? And I would like to address the question first to Sylvain.
Well, that's what keeps me up at night, to be honest with you. So from a research granting organization and custodian of the research funding, I mean, CFI needs to ensure that the investment that we're making are sound and that the relationship between the parties are also clear. So I've got a list of 20 items here that I will not list to you, but those are the kind of things that needs to be addressed when you're reviewing these proposals coming our way, right? And Roland yesterday mentioned, was it yesterday or Tuesday, mentioned that you have to be as open as possible and as close as necessary, right? So MOUs in some instances might be okay to share the infrastructures, to send infrastructure abroad for these kind of relationship. But it comes down to being patient and making sure that the relationship, that you share values between the relation between the two entities. I think from a CFI perspective, the lessons that we have learned thus far is, governance structures is important in the negotiations of these kind of agreement. Of course, we're not the federal government, so we have to obey by the rules and regulations that are imposed upon us, of course, right? But you need to be adaptable, and I could give the example, which is written here on CERN, when Russia pulled out, whatever meanings that means, but and being flexible enough so that Canada can chip in order to increase its funding in order to make experiments happen. I mean, those are the kind of things that we have to look at. So other lessons that are learned is to create clear, standardized protocols that could be put in place for these kind of collaborations. So I'll leave it at that because I know that time is running out and you have 2 more questions.
Thank you, Sylvain, for your contribution. Professor Masuoka, in the context of your global collaboration in high-performance computing, what measurable outcomes and long-term impacts have been achieved, and what mechanisms are in place to ensure the sustainability and ongoing relevance of the initiative in the future?
Yeah, firstly, some of the answers were in my slides. But firstly, supercomputing has always been a hyper-competitive field, right? So no other discipline I know says we're number one or do foolish things like that. Okay. So, but that said, there have been significant advances in the recent times with respect to global collaborations of multiple science teams and multiple scientists and multiple infrastructures collaborating to provide these breakthrough sciences. Climate change, the ICPP, supercomputers across the world are used to come up with these models, climate models, to estimate the effect of climate change. There were a lot of collaboration during the COVID days, and also a lot of disaster prevention. I can go on like for hours saying what success models with respect to global collaboration from bottom up in the science. Also, there's collaboration now that I mentioned between the countries and also within industry with respect to actually building or designing the next generation platform. So in computing, there's always the use of the computing and the technology itself. So we need to pursue both. But also in technology side, there's considerable collaborations between the countries. For example, there's been a recently treaty that's been signed between the between the United States government and the Japanese government. And of course, taking action there is the responsibility of the agency ministries, in this particular case, between the US DOE, Department of Energy, and between the Japanese MEXT. But again, it's a government-level collaboration agreement. So, these mechanisms, so there are a lot of things happening bottom up. But now the agency, the agencies and also the political rulers are starting to realize that to establish this longevity and sustainability, that having something from the top down is also very important, as signified by this agreement between Japanese and U.S. governments. And now there's a movement to kind of expand this across the G7 nations. So this year there's been considerable discussions amongst the G7 nations with respect to having some sort of a collaborative framework amongst the nation and also some affiliate countries like Spain, of course, to establish a global framework of collaboration in high-performance computing. So both bottom-up and top-down are very important, and but also to produce these tangible results that will affect the society, like climate change, for example, are also very important. And also, finally, to say, having these personal contacts with the, between the infrastructures, between the scientists, also very important. So it's very important to have meetings like this, so we can expand our communal relationships.
Thank you. So we have 3 minutes to end, and I would like just conclude with a sentence for each of you, summarizing what we have presented today and the importance of this global collaboration. And I would like to start with Kate.
All right, so I think our global successes really focus on data interoperability, and we've heard lots about data. But I think I want to emphasize that it has taken decades of bottoms-up efforts to come up with standards for very specific kinds of data. And one of the benefits of environmental research infrastructures like NEON, like CERN, and the others in the room are the rich contextual information, the many different kinds of data. And we are still in need of standards for these multi-dimensional environmental data sets to really leverage the strength and power to address the pressing needs of that climate change are bringing to the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Sylvain?
From a funding organization, for us what is important is Canada is open for business, and we have large research infrastructure for the benefit of the many, not the few. So, be open, come to our country, and vice versa. I understand that we've been very active internationally in these programs, and the federal government is certainly willing to be investing in these research infrastructures moving forward.
Thank you. Rory, your views?
Yeah, I think it starts with national champions and scientific passion. You need that to start with. But at the end, to really move beyond MOUs, I think we need to think about these kind of legal instruments. And in Europe, we've been very lucky to have the ERIC regulation. Could we have something similar in the future for global cooperation or adapt the regulation in some way, I don't know. But that kind of formality, I think, is what we need to move to the next level.
And finally, Satoshi?
Yes, well, many of these infrastructures are very expensive. For example, any one of these exascale machines will be like $1 billion endeavor during its lifetime, right? And so are like light sources, accelerators, these billions or even multi-billions of dollars investment. So as such, we really have to respond to the societal needs because at the end of the day, it's the taxpayers that's funding our endeavors. So we really have to justify our existence in terms of what kind of benefits, be it economical benefits or enlightenment or whatever. And international collaboration, I think, will even enlarge our effect on enhancing our story with respect to providing societal benefits. So any sort of collaboration, international framework, will really have to emphasize the fact this international collaboration will bring greater global, global implications or benefits to the entire global society. And that's, I think, one of the key elements to make it more quite sustainable.
So thank you so much. And with this, we conclude the panel. I hope that you have enjoyed the discussion. And thank you to all my excellent panelists. Thank you.